Joining us tonight to answer your questions is Jennifer Redding, Executive Director of Behavioral Health Services at University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Health. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
So this time of year, for many of the people you work with, can be challenging?
Absolutely. I was looking at some research recently, and the American Psychological Association did a survey not too long ago that said 90% of folks acknowledge that the holidays create stress for them more than they would like to manage. So
that is because why? I think about, you're going to be socializing. You may not want to socialize. The weather's going to stink. What comes to mind?
Well, there's a whole bunch of things. I think there are sort of those, what I call the woulda, shoulda, couldas. We always think that things should be so much different than they really are. And I always tell the folks that I work with and my colleagues that the woulda, shoulda, couldas belong in a Dr. Seuss book, not in your thoughts. And so, the financial pressure, the pressure to, get the perfect presents and to make things perfect for your family, the thought of having to socialize with your family that maybe you don't get along with, just the tension that way. They're just all of the different pressures, I think.
We imagine that it should be the storybook version of the holidays, that it should be a Hallmark movie, and for many people it's not, but your expectations are up here somewhere.
Absolutely, and it's interesting. I talk to folks about thinking about, think about last year and sort of your lessons learned. What worked, what didn't, and let's try to put that into practice for the present year. And so, really trying to manage those expectations and just be realistic. And obviously we want the holidays to be special, especially if we have kiddos, but let's just focus on what's truly important, which in my mind is connection. It doesn't matter if you've got the newest shiny sort of toy and gadget and that sort of thing, but it's about connection with each other.
How about the challenges of this time of year for people who are dealing with a behavioral health, mental health diagnosis already versus people who are not?
Yeah, again, going back to research, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, talked about, I believe it's about 46% of folks say, or maybe I've got it backwards, 64% of folks who already have a mental health issue say that the holidays really compound and make things worse for them. And so it gets really challenging to manage sort of your own mental illness on top of all of those pressures, for sure.
Hard to generalize, but for people in that situation who hopefully have some sort of support system, what are the options? What can they do?
Well, I think whether you have an actual mental illness yourself or just trying to get through the holiday season, I think there are some basic things that we all can put into practice to help. I think it's sticking to routines. Oftentimes, it feels like from the middle of November all the way through the first of the new year, we all sort of have these parties and we have, different work schedules, and there's just all sorts of things going on, and we get out of our routine, out of our schedules. And as humans, we really rely on predictability and sort of that expected kind of routine. So I think that in and of itself makes it challenging. So sticking to your routines, making sure that you're eating. I always joke and say eating, sleeping, and breathing. We sometimes forget to breathe. And obviously, we're breathing, but what I mean by that is just being intentional about what your body is telling you. Listen to it and give yourself some time to relax when you need it, rest when you need it, eat when you need it.
Yeah, the other thing for people who may have lost a friend or family member in the past year, you're going into a holiday where it's going to be the first Christmas without somebody. Brings it all back, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I'm going through that myself personally, loss of a dear family friend. And so I think, what I suggest for folks that are dealing with it, including myself, is to kind of get in front of it. It's going to be a challenging time. And so if you can, think about any sort of tradition that maybe can commemorate and support the legacy of that loved one, something that you can do collectively as a family or within your friend group to celebrate that person instead of sort of focusing on the sadness and the loss. Look and sort of try to flip it and celebrate the joy that you had in your life with them in it.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question, a story to tell about dealing with the holiday blues, send us an email, livequestions@mpt.org. For people with substance abuse issues, I mean, good grief, you know, the party season has got to be a particular challenge, alcohol everywhere.
It certainly does feel that way. I think, again, though, you know, we sort of make assumptions that alcohol has to go hand in hand with any sort of celebration. And I think it's also being intentional about that and sort of setting yourself up for success. And so, you know, when there are going to be events or special celebrations, kind of checking that out ahead of time and sort of, you know, if there is going to be alcohol or other substances, it's sort of building in that safety net, you know, whether that's a person or maybe, you know, you're going to pop in for just a few minutes, those sorts of things. But again, being proactive and kind of anticipating what you might need to stick to your plan.
It's also, you know, it's a mechanism that people use to deal with maybe a difficult family or social situation. I'll have a drink or two, it'll make it easier. But it can make it a lot tougher at the same time, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly alcohol is tricky. It's a depressant, you know, and so many people, like you sort of alluded to, use it to sort of stop their brain from kind of ruminating and to kind of take the edge off. But there's a very fine line, you know, if you continue to drink and sort of cross over into that depressant side of things. So many folks, you know, then kind of go down the rabbit hole, if you will, of even feeling worse and feeling suicidal and just feeling, you know, the extreme of things. And obviously I'm talking about folks that don't have a substance use issue, but it still can be a complicating factor.
Let's talk about where people can get help. In particular, the Klein Family Center. Tell us about that a little bit.
Sure. The Klein Family Center is located in Harford County, Maryland. It is an urgent care walk-in center for anyone experiencing any sort of behavioral health symptoms. So depression, anxiety, maybe you don't even know what it's called, whatever it is you're feeling, but you know that something is just not right. You're not feeling yourself. You're having a hard time getting out of bed. You're having a hard time kind of sticking to what you normally do. Maybe you're not wanting to go to work or go to school. You know, your normal coping strategies aren't working. The Klein Family Center is just like I said, it's an urgent care walk-in center. It's open every single day of the year, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. No appointment is necessary. Folks come in, they're going to get in front of a licensed counselor, and between that counselor and that person, they're going to navigate and figure out what's going on and what's going to be the best course of action. So in addition to the urgent care walk-in center, we also have something called a residential crisis bed program. And so we have beds that folks can stay in for, on average, 8 to 10 days. It really varies depending on what that person needs, but it's a chance to sort of reset, is how I describe it. That individual is going to get to participate in some therapy, both individual and group, get in front of a prescriber if that's what's necessary. Everything that's needed to sort of kind of get them back on track so that they can go back home and function, you know, into their regular lives.
How unusual is that sort of setup in our modern healthcare system? I'm trying to think of an equivalent to it, and I really can't.
Right. The Klein Family Center's been around for a little over 5 years, and we were really on the forefront of innovation. We've been a model across the state for that level of care, and certainly it's the way of the future. You know, we're really working to keep folks out of the emergency department and get the care that they need in the way that they need it, you know, so very specific to someone who's going through a behavioral health sort of moment, you know, whether it's a full-fledged crisis or just feeling out of sorts. That setting is really catered to helping them feel better.
Let's talk about the shortest day of the year, which is coming up in just a couple of days, and it's one of my favorite days because it marks a change in the trend. Mm-hmm. The trend has been every day is getting a little bit shorter, a little bit less daylight, and we haven't hit winter yet, but as soon as that trend changes and the days start getting a little bit longer, I'm happier.
Yeah.
Is seasonal affective disorder a thing that you see often?
It is, and I might argue that winter isn't here yet because it surely feels like it is
I'm
here.
looking
But
past it.
I like your optimism. But seasonal affective disorder is definitely alive and well. It's a type of depression that folks experience specifically related to the seasons. And so typically if someone is impacted by what we call SAD, it's typically beginning in late fall, goes all the way through early spring, where, like you alluded to, the daylight hours are fewer. And so what research is telling us, although it's still not quite certain, but that folks have a deficiency in vitamin D, serotonin, which is one of the chemicals in our brains, is lacking. And then there's also speculation that there's something called melatonin, and there is an overproduction of melatonin in folks that have SAD, and it makes them feel like they want to sleep more and really not get moving. And so I think during this time of year in particular, it can be challenging for folks.
You wanted to talk about mindfulness. What does that mean?
So mindfulness, the way I like to talk about it is, especially related to the holiday season, when we're all running around, we're trying to get everything done, we're maybe having some work parties or having to work with or deal with family members that maybe we would rather stay away from, all that good stuff. Our nervous system gets dysregulated. And so what that means is we're in sort of a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. So it takes us back to caveman days when we had to really fight for our survival. Fast forward, your brain is sort of interpreting or misinterpreting situations in a similar way. And so it's preparing you to stay alive and help you figure out whether you need to fight, run, or just stay frozen because you're going to die. And so mindfulness really helps your brain recognize that, what, you don't have to protect the body like that. You're not in danger. So it's reminding your brain and your body to breathe, to focus on sort of the here and now versus the million thoughts that are running through your brain at 2 a.m., that sort of thing. And so it's helping your body and brain regulate, if you will.
Sounds like a plan. Jennifer Redding, University of Maryland, Upper Chesapeake Health and the Klein Family Center. Thanks for visiting with us, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Likewise.